The night was colder than any night Evan had felt in months, the kind of cold that made the air sting like needles and the ground crack with frost. He walked along the edge of the old spaceport, a place most humans avoided after sunset because strange sounds moved in the wind, sounds that felt alive. But Evan came here every night. He collected broken metal pieces and old machine parts to sell in the market. He did not enjoy this work, but it kept his small home warm and kept food. On his table above him, the sky was full of hard, bright stars. They looked beautiful, but they also looked lonely. Evan pulled his jacket tight around his shoulders and kept walking, his boots crunching through frozen dust. The silence was heavy tonight, too heavy. Even the wind felt afraid to blow. He bent down to pick a small metal plate from the ground. As he turned it over in his hands, he heard something very soft, very light, almost like a breath or a whisper. He stopped moving. The hair on the back of his neck stood up. He told himself it was just the wind, but something inside him said it was not the wind at all. Evan slowly stood up and looked around. The shadows near the broken cargo pods seemed deeper than usual. The whisper came again, this time a little clearer, as if someone was trying to speak but lacked the strength. It was not a human voice. It was too small, too soft, too fragile. He took one step forward, then another. His heartbeat grew faster. He had heard stories about strange creatures seen in these ruins, creatures desperate enough to attack for food or warmth. But the voice he heard did not sound dangerous. It sounded scared. Evan walked closer to a half-fallen container. The metal door was torn open, leaving a dark space between the broken edges. Light from the moon slid inside just a little, showing something small curled in the corner. At first, Evan thought it was a child. Then he realized it was not human at all. A tiny alien girl sat shaking in the dark. Her skin had a faint silver tone, but most of that shine was gone because of the cold. Her eyes were large, too large for her thin face, and full of fear. She held something in her small hands, a torn blanket, old and dirty. She hugged it against her chest like it was her only protection. When she saw Evan, she tried to stand, but her legs were too weak. She stumbled and almost fell. Evan raised his hands slowly, showing he was not going to hurt her, but she backed away until her back hit the cold metal wall. Her lips moved, but her voice was only a trembling whisper. "Please, please, take this." She held the ruined blanket out toward him. I will give myself, if you give me a warm one." Evan froze. The cold around him felt nothing compared to the cold in his heart at that moment. She was offering herself, her life, her body, anything for a simple blanket. She was so young. She looked no older than 10 or 11 in human years, and yet she believed this was normal. She believed humans expected this. Something terrible had happened to her. Evan slowly knelt down, keeping his movements gentle so he would not scare her more. "Hey, it's okay," he said softly. "You don't have to give me anything." But she shook her head. Her small fingers clutched the torn blanket tightly. "Please, I can work. I can clean. I can do whatever you want, just please. I am so cold." Her voice cracked. A tear slid down her cheek and froze before it reached her chin. Evan looked at her thin arms, her trembling legs, the way she pressed herself into the corner like she expected pain. He could see she had not eaten in days. Her skin was too pale. Her breaths too weak. If he walked away tonight, she would not survive until morning. The spaceport wind howled through the broken door, but Evan no longer felt the cold. He felt anger, sadness, and something else, something he had not felt in a long time. A deep need to protect this girl. He slowly took off his own jacket and held it out. She stared at it like it was magic. She did not move. She did not trust it. Evan stepped closer, wrapped the jacket around her small shoulders, and said, "You don't have to trade anything. You're safe now." For the first time, she looked confused instead of scared. The night of cold stars had changed. A new story had just begun. The alien girl sat still under Evan's jacket, as if she did not understand what warmth was. Her small hands gripped the thick fabric, but she kept her eyes down, waiting for something bad to happen. She did not believe. Kindness came without a price. In her world, kindness always hid danger behind it. Evan watched her carefully. She was shaking from cold, but he could also see another kind of shaking fear. Fear that came from deep inside. Fear that only someone who had suffered too much could feel. He knew he had to move slowly, speak gently, and earn her trust step by step. "What's your name?" he asked softly. The girl hesitated for a long moment. Her lips trembled as she answered, "Leary, my name is Leary." Leary. The name sounded delicate, almost like a whisper carried by the wind. Evan nodded. "I'm Evan. I'm not going to hurt you. You don't have to give me anything. I want to help you." Leary shook her head so quickly, it made her hair fall across her face. No, humans don't help. Humans take, always take." She held the torn blanket close again, almost hiding behind it. "I offered myself because that is what the others wanted. And I thought you wanted the same." Evan felt a sting in his chest, a pain sharper than the cold. How many humans had treated her like this? How many had made her believe she was nothing but an object to trade? He took a deep breath, trying not to show anger. Anger might frighten her more. "Leary, not all humans are like that," he said quietly. She looked up at him for a moment. Her eyes were full of confusion, disbelief, and exhaustion. She wanted to believe him, but her past told her not to trust. Evan stood and extended his hand gently. "Come with me. You can rest at my home. It's warm there. You won't survive the night here." Leary stared at his hand as if it were something dangerous, not a simple gesture. She shook her head again. "If I go with you, I must pay. I must do something. I don't want to, but I will if I must." "You don't have to pay anything," Evan said firmly. But Leary did not move. She pulled the torn blanket over her knees and whispered, "Humans don't give without taking." The words broke his heart. Evan knelt again, making himself smaller so she wouldn't feel trapped. "Leary, I am giving you a choice, a real choice. You can stay here and freeze, or you can come with me and be safe. No payment. No fear." Leary's eyes filled with tears. She looked around the dark spaceport, the broken metal walls, freezing air, the endless silence. She knew she would die if she stayed. Her breath was already weak. Her fingers were already numb. Still, her mind fought her fear. Why would you help me? You don't know me." "Because you're alone," Evan answered, "and no one deserves to be alone out here." Something inside her cracked. A small piece of trust formed, just enough for her to move. She placed one trembling hand in Evan's. It was so light, so cold, that Evan felt a rush of protectiveness he didn't expect. He lifted her gently into his arms. Her body weighed almost nothing, too little for a child her size. She buried her face in his shoulder, not from trust, but from pure exhaustion. As Evan stepped out of the ruined cargo pod, the wind cut across his face. It was colder than before. The moonlight showed deep tracks in the frost tracks made by boots. Not his boots. Many boots. Someone else had been here. Someone searching. Evan looked around, alert now. He heard the faint hum of patrol drones far. In the distance, the colony guards searched this area often. If they found Leary, they would take her away. And he had heard what they did with alien children. None of it was good. Evan held her closer. "We have to move fast," he whispered. Leary opened her eyes weakly. Are they coming?" "Yes," Evan said, "but I won't let them take you." She clung to his jacket even tighter. For the first time, her fear was mixed with something new, hope. Thin but real. Evan carried her through the shadows, moving carefully between broken ships and old metal crates. Every sound felt louder. Every light felt dangerous. If he was caught helping an alien child, he would be punished too. But Evan did not slow down. He made his choice, a choice that would change both their lives forever. And in his arms, Leary whispered the first word that showed her heart was opening, even just a little thank you. Evan's small house stood on the quiet edge of the colony, far from the loud markets and strict patrol zones. It was simple: 2 rooms, a tiny kitchen, and an old heater that worked only when it wanted to. But tonight, to Leary, it felt like something impossible. It felt like safety. Evan pushed the door open with his shoulder while still holding her. Warm air drifted out, touching her cold skin like a soft hand. She lifted her head slightly. Her eyes were wide, full of disbelief. She had never seen a human home from the inside. "You can relax," Evan whispered, closing the door behind them. "No one will hurt you here." Leary did not answer. She held his jacket tightly around her small body as if it were a shield. Her feet dangled from his arms, cold and bare. Evan gently placed her on the couch, but she didn't lean back. She sat straight, tense, as if she expected someone to shout at her. He turned on a lamp. The soft yellow light filled the room. Leary flinched at first, then stared at the bulb as though it were alive. "Are you hungry?" Evan asked. She lowered her head. "I don't know. What is hunger like for humans?" She whispered. Evan walked to the kitchen. "It's the same for everyone," he called back. "Your stomach hurts because it needs food." Leary pressed a hand to her belly. She had felt that pain for days, but she did not complain. She had learned long ago that complaining only made things worse. When Evan returned with warm soup in a bowl, Leary's eyes followed the steam rising from it. She looked torn. Part of her wanted it desperately, and part of her feared taking anything for free. Evan placed the bowl gently in front of her. "You can eat as much as you want." She shook her head slowly. "No, I can't. I didn't earn this." "You don't have to earn food," Evan said. Leary looked confused again. She touched the bowl with trembling fingers. It was warm, too warm for her cold skin. She pulled her hand back in surprise. Evan saw the shock on her face and felt another sharp ache in his heart. "Go on," he encouraged. Leary took a small spoonful and tasted it. Her eyes widened. Warmth spread through her body. She took another spoonful, then another, faster now. Evan watched quietly, letting her eat without interruption. He knew she needed this moment more than anything, something normal, something human, something kind. When the bowl was empty, she held it with both hands, staring into it as if she could not believe it was real. "Do you want more?" Evan asked gently. She nodded once, very slowly, like she was afraid wanting more was a crime. After her second bowl, her shaking grew softer. Her breaths became deeper. Some color returned to her silver skin. Evan sat across from her. "Leary," he said carefully, "you don't have to be afraid here. No one will take you. No one will use you. You can rest." She stared at him for a long time. Then she whispered, "Why?" "Because you deserve safety," Evan said. "You deserve to live without fear." Leary lowered her eyes. For the first time since he found her, she looked like a child, not a survivor. But the peace was thin. Every few minutes, Leary's head snapped toward the window as if she heard footsteps outside. She clutched the torn blanket she still carried. It was more important to her than food or warmth, and Evan noticed how carefully she held it. He wondered about its history, but he didn't ask yet. "Do they come here?" she whispered suddenly. "Who?" Evan asked. She swallowed hard. "The hunters. The soldiers. The men with masks. They chased my people. They took the children away. They said we were dangerous, but we are not. We are only small and weak." Evan leaned forward. "No one knows you're here. You're safe with me." Leary hugged her blanket tighter. For how long? Evan did not answer quickly. He thought of the patrols, the drones, the boot prints he saw at the spaceport. He thought of the laws that punished humans who hit aliens. He thought of the danger that now sat in his home, trembling and innocent. For as long as you need, he finally said, his voice steady. Leary's eyes filled again, not with the fear he had seen before, but with something softer, something fragile, something new. Hope. She lay down slowly on the couch, curling herself under the jacket he gave her. Evan brought a second blanket and placed it over her. She didn't move. She didn't speak. But when he turned to leave the room, he heard her tiny voice for the first time that night say something gentle. Good night, Evan, he smiled. Good night, Leary. But outside, past the warm walls of the small house, the night was not quiet. Someone was searching. Someone had seen the footprints too. And danger was already moving closer. The morning came slowly, bringing a weak yellow light across the small house. Evan opened his eyes to the sound of soft breathing. Leary was still sleeping on the couch, curled under his jacket like a small silver leaf. Her face looked peaceful for the first time, but even in her sleep, her fingers clutched her old torn blanket tightly, as if someone might steal it away. Evan stood quietly, not wanting to wake her, but the world outside was not quiet at all. A deep rumbling sound came from the sky. He stepped to the window. 3 patrol drones flew low over the houses, scanning the area with blue lights. They usually searched near the markets or the colony gates, not here. Something was wrong. He watched them move toward the spaceport ruins, the exact place where he had found Leary last night. He felt his stomach twist. Maybe someone had seen him. Maybe someone had reported movement in the ruins. Maybe the hunters already knew a child had escaped. Evan closed the curtains fast. Behind him, Leary stirred. She opened her eyes slowly, blinking as if she expected to wake up to another cold night. When she saw the warm room, the blankets, and Evan standing nearby, she sat up fast, surprised. Am I still here? She whispered. Double quotes. Yes, Evan said, with a small smile. You slept well. But Leary did not relax. Her eyes kept jumping to the walls, the door, the windows. I heard the sound, the flying machines, patrol drones, Evan said. They search for things. Or people. Leary hugged her blanket even tighter. They are looking for me. Evan didn't want to scare her, but he also couldn't lie. Maybe, but they won't find you here. Leary's breath became shaky. Evan, they always find us. They always come back. She slid off the couch and crouched behind it, hiding as if she expected soldiers to break in any moment. Evan walked toward her slowly and knelt beside her. You're safe, he said softly. I won't let anyone take you. Leary shook her head. You don't understand. They want my kind. They think we hide secrets. They think our blood is special. They took my sister. They took my friends. They never came back. Her voice broke and a small sob escaped. Evan felt a sudden wave of anger at the hunters, anger at the lies told during war, anger at the cruelty that had turned a child into someone who feared every sound. He placed a steady hand on her shoulder. Leary, you're not alone anymore. But before Leary could answer, a loud knock hit the door. Both of them froze. Another knock followed, harder this time. Colony Patrol. A voice shouted from outside. Leary's eyes filled with terror. She crawled backward until she hit the back wall. Her whole body shook like a leaf in a storm. She pressed her blanket to her chest as if it were armor. Evan's heart dropped. He forced himself to stay calm. Stay here, he whispered. He walked to the door and opened it just a little. A patrol officer stood outside, wearing a dark uniform, with a visor that hid his eyes. Morning, Evan said, trying to sound normal. We're checking this zone. the officer said. There was movement at the ruins last night. Did you see anything unusual? Evan felt sweat gather on his neck. Just me scavenging, like always. The officer looked past him into the house. Evan stepped sideways to block the view. Any strangers in the area? The officer asked. No, Evan answered firmly. The officer did not look convinced. He lifted a scanner and aimed it inside. The machine beeped once, scanning heat signatures. Evan's heart pounded. Leary was behind the couch. Would the scanner reach that far? The machine beeped again, then fell silent. Your heater must be old, the officer muttered. Heat readings are strange. Evan forced a smile. Yeah. It barely works. The officer lowered the scanner. If you see anything odd, report it. A small alien child escaped from the holding zone. Dangerous creature. Evan nearly lost control of his expression. Dangerous? Leary was a scared child who offered herself for a warm blanket. No, Evan said calmly. I'll let you know. The officer nodded and walked away. Evan closed the door fast and locked it. He turned to see Leary peeking from behind the couch, her eyes wide and wet. They were looking for me, she whispered. But they didn't find you, Evan said. They will, Leary replied shakily. They always return. Evan walked toward her and knelt again. Then we'll stay ahead of them. I promise. Leary stared into his eyes, searching for something. Truth, strength, safety. After a long moment, she nodded and wiped her tears. In that small house, a silent agreement formed. Evan would protect her. Leary would trust him. The hunters had returned. But they did not know they were no longer hunting a helpless child. They were facing a human who had chosen mercy over fear, and that changed everything. After the patrol left, the small house felt too quiet, as if the walls themselves were listening. Evan closed every curtain, checked every lock, and made sure no drone lights flickered outside. Leary stayed near the couch, holding her torn blanket, as if it were part of her own body. Her hands were still shaking, but her eyes now watched Evan with something different, trust mixed with fear. Evan sat beside her, giving her space. Leary, we need to talk, he said softly. I need to understand what happened to you. Why are they hunting you? Why did you think you must offer yourself for a blanket? Leary froze. Her fingers tightened around the cloth. For a moment, she looked like she wanted to hide again. But something in Evan's voice, calm, patient, kind, told her it was safe to speak. She took a deep breath. This blanket, she whispered, is the last thing my mother gave me. Evan felt his heart twist. He had guessed the blanket meant something to her, but he had not expected this. Leary continued in a slow, shaking voice. My people, we are not fighters, we are healers. We travel from place to place to help sick planets. But humans thought we were spies or monsters or something dangerous. They did not understand us. She looked down, her eyes shining with memories that hurt to remember. One night, soldiers came to our camp. They said we were hiding weapons. We had none. They shouted at my father. They pushed my mother. They grabbed the children. I ran and hid behind a supply crate. I watched everything. Her voice cracked. My mother found me. She covered me with this blanket and said, Stay quiet, little star. Do not let them see you. She kissed my head. And then she ran out. To distract them, they caught her. They took her away. I never saw her again. A tear slid down Leary's cheek. She didn't wipe it away. Evan felt anger rise inside him, not at Leary's people, but at the humans who had done this. At the lies that created fear. At the cruelty that turned a peaceful tribe into hunted ghosts. Leary pulled the blanket tighter. After that night I was alone. A man found me in the market. He told me if I wanted food or warmth, I must give him something in return. I didn't understand, but I did what he said. He was cruel. He hurt me. When he was done, he threw me out. I kept the blanket because because it was the only thing that still felt like love. Evan felt something break inside him. His hands curled into fists, not because of anger toward her, but toward the world that had done this to her. "I wandered for days," Leary whispered, "and when I saw you, I thought you wanted the same thing. Humans only helped me when they wanted something. I didn't know someone could just give something without taking." She looked at him with trembling eyes, almost afraid of his reaction. Evan reached out, slowly, so she could pull back if she wanted. He touched the blanket lightly. "This is not torn or worthless, Leary," he said softly. "This blanket saved you. Your mother saved you. It is special. And you are special." Leary blinked, surprised by his words. Evan continued, "And I want you to know something important. What those men did to you, what those soldiers did to your family, none of that is your fault. And it does not mean all humans are like them." Leary nodded slowly, but her voice was still soft. "But the hunters, why do they still want me?" Evan exhaled. "I think they want control. They want power. Stories about your people say your tribe has special abilities, healing abilities. Maybe they want to use that." Leary looked frightened. "We only heal. We don't harm anyone." "I know," Evan said, "but fear makes people do cruel things." There was silence for a moment. A heavy silence full of old pain and new hope. Then Leary whispered, "Evan, will you still protect me? Even after hearing everything?" Evan didn't hesitate. "Yes, even more now." Her eyes softened. She leaned a little closer, not much, just enough to show she was no longer afraid of him. But before peace could settle, Evan heard something outside, a faint buzzing sound. Drone engines coming closer. Leary's face turned pale. "They found me." Evan stood quickly. "No, they're searching. But they haven't found you yet." He grabbed a small bag, stuffed it with essentials, and knelt before her. "Leary," he said firmly, "we can't stay here. We're leaving." She clutched the blanket and nodded, trusting him completely. Evan opened the back door, the cold wind rushing in. The truth of the blanket had changed everything. Now the fight to protect the last child of a peaceful tribe had truly begun. Cold wind swept into the small house as Evan opened the back door. The sky was dark gray, heavy with the promise of rain. The sound of drones grew louder, their engines humming like angry insects searching for prey. Leary clutched her blanket tightly, her small fingers gripping the fabric as if it were a lifeline. "Stay close to me," Evan whispered. Leary nodded, her eyes wide with fear but full of trust. They stepped outside, moving quietly along the narrow path behind the house. Frost crunched under their feet, and every sound felt too loud. Evan glanced at the sky. 3 drones were sweeping across the neighborhood in slow circles, scanning for heat signatures. "We have to get to the old shuttle bay," Evan said. "If we reach it before the patrol blocks the exit, we can escape." "The colony," Leary swallowed hard. "Is it far?" "Not far," Evan said. "But dangerous." She took a deep breath, trying to be brave. "I can do it." They moved between houses, staying low. The wind carried the sharp smell of metal and burning fuel. Somewhere nearby, an alarm started to ring, short, fast beeps that meant the patrol had found something suspicious in the area. Evan's heart pounded. They had to move faster. He led Leary behind an abandoned supply shed, then across a long field of tall, dry grass. The grass brushed against their legs and whispered against the ground, hiding them from the drones above. Leary stayed right behind him, breathing quietly, her feet soft on the frozen earth. But when they reached the factory wall near the shuttle bay, Evan stopped. A tall fence made of old iron panels blocked the path, stretching far left and right. It had not been there years ago. The colony must have rebuilt the area to stop smugglers. Leary looked up at him. "What do we do now?" Evan scanned the fence. Rusty metal, weak joints. He pressed his hand against the side and pushed. It didn't move. But near the bottom, he saw loose bolts. "There," he said. "We can crawl under." He knelt and pulled, loosening the metal panel as quietly as he could. The fence made a soft groaning sound. Leary flinched, afraid the noise would alert the drones. "Hurry," Evan whispered. Leary dropped to her knees and slid under the small gap first. Her thin form fit easily. She held her blanket close so it wouldn't get caught. Evan followed, pushing his bag through and squeezing himself under. The fence. The cold metal scraped his back, but he didn't slow down. They stood on the other side, breathing hard. The shuttle bay was still far, but now there were fewer houses and more open ground. And the open ground was dangerous. A sudden flash of blue light swept across the field. A drone. Evan grabbed Leary's hand and pulled her behind a stack of broken shipping crates. The drone hovered above the field like a metallic wasp, scanning the grass for movement. Leary trembled. Her breathing grew fast. "They're close," she whispered. Evan placed a finger over his lips. "Quiet." The drone drifted lower. Its lights passed only a few meters from their hiding place. Evan wrapped his arm around Leary, shielding her with his body. He felt her small hands clutch the front of his shirt. After a long moment, the drone moved away. "Come on," Evan said softly. "We have to reach the loading tunnels. They connect to the shuttle bay. The tunnels were old, abandoned even before the war. Not many people remembered them." Evan hoped the patrol didn't either. They ran to the edge of a broken platform. The tunnel entrance was covered with heavy vines and rubble. Evan pushed the plants aside, revealing darkness inside. "Will it be safe?" Leary asked. "It's our best chance," Evan replied. He led her inside. The tunnel was cold, damp, and silent. Their footsteps echoed softly. Leary touched the wall, surprised by how smooth it felt. For a moment, she forgot her fear and looked around with curiosity, but then they heard voices above them. 2 patrol soldiers. Their boots clanked on the platform outside the tunnel. Evan pulled Leary deeper into the darkness. They crouched behind a collapsed beam, holding their breath. "Footprints," one soldier said. "Small ones, a child." Leary's hand tightened on her blanket. "Orders say she's dangerous," the other soldier replied. "If we find her, we take her alive. The doctor wants her tested." Evan felt anger burn inside him. Tested, used, controlled. They saw her only as a tool. The soldiers walked away slowly. Evan waited until their voices faded, then whispered, "We don't have much time. The shuttle bay is close. Just one more passage." Leary nodded, trying to be brave. Hand in hand, they ran through the last part of the tunnel until they reached a large metal door. Beyond this door was freedom, or danger greater than anything. Before Evan pushed it open, light spilled inside. The iron gates were behind them now. But ahead was a final challenge waiting in the open air. The metal door creaked as Evan pushed it open. A harsh white light spilled through the opening, forcing both him and Leary to squint. When their eyes adjusted, they saw the old shuttle bay, vast, cracked, and nearly silent. Once this place had been busy with ships coming and going. Now only broken platforms and forgotten machines filled the space. Leary held Evan's hand tighter. "Is this where we escape?" she whispered. "Yes," Evan said. "There's an old shuttle in the back. If it still works, we can leave this colony behind." Leary nodded, but her eyes were full of worry. "Evan, if they catch you helping me, they will punish you." "I know," he said. "But I'm not turning back." They stepped inside the bay, moving carefully across the cold metal floor. Their steps echoed far too loudly. Evan scanned the area. No soldiers, no drones yet. A good sign, but the feeling in the air was wrong. Too still. Too quiet. They reached the far corner where an old shuttle rested. Its wings were dented, and its paint had faded, but the cockpit looked intact. Evan opened the side panel and checked the power cells. A spark of blue light flickered. "It works," he whispered. Leary's eyes lit with hope, but only for a moment. Leary's eyes lit whispered. Sudden shout echoed through the bay. "There, by the shuttle." Evan spun around. A group of patrol officers stood near the entrance, weapons raised. Their boots hammered against the metal floor as they ran toward them. Blue lights glowed on their helmets. Leary gasped and stepped behind Evan, clutching her blanket. "Stay behind me," Evan shouted. One officer pointed at Leary. "Hand over the alien child. She is government property." Evan felt fire rush through his veins. "She's not property. She's a child. Move aside." The officer barked. "No." Evan stood firm, blocking their path. The officers slowed, surprised by the human man's boldness. One of them raised a stun rifle. "You can't win," he said. "You are outnumbered. Step away." Leary trembled behind Evan. Her voice cracked. "Evan, I don't want you to get hurt. Please." He looked back at her, giving a small, brave smile. "I promised I'd protect you. And I keep my promises." The officers marched forward. Evan moved quickly. He grabbed a loose metal rod from the ground and swung it at the nearest officer, knocking him off balance. Another officer fired, but the shot hit a crate, blasting sparks into the air. Leary screamed as the room filled with noise and flashing. "Lights! Run to the shuttle!" Evan shouted. I hesitated. "But you!" "Go!" Tears streamed down her face, but she obeyed. She ran toward the shuttle, holding her blanket tightly. The officers advanced again. Evan swung the rod, blocking another hit. But there were too many of them. A soldier struck him across the shoulder, sending him to one knee. Pain shot through his body. The lead officer aimed a weapon at Leary. "Stop running!" Evan roared, forcing himself up despite the pain. "Leave her alone." Leary turned, terrified, and raised her hand in fear. Then something strange happened. A soft, glowing light spread from her palm. The officers froze. The light grew brighter, warm, peaceful, gentle. It filled the air like the glow of a rising sun. The soldiers lowered their weapons, stunned. Their visors flickered with strange signals. Leary's voice trembled but carried strength. "We heal, not hurt. Please stop." The officers blinked, confused. Their anger faded, replaced by a calm they didn't understand. One lowered his weapon completely. Evan stared in awe. "Leary, your ability." She lowered her glowing hand slowly. "My people use light to heal minds, to show truth. They lied during the war. They said we were dangerous. But we carry only peace." The officers stepped back, overwhelmed by the calming effect of Leary's light. Their leader struggled to speak. What are we doing? She's just a child." Evan took Leary's hand again. "Let's go." They moved fast. Evan climbed into the shuttle, helped Leary inside, and closed the door. His hands shook as he activated the controls. Outside, the officers watched in silence, unsure of what they had just witnessed. The shuttle engines rumbled, shaking the ground. Dust blew across the floor as the ship rose slowly. Leary looked at Evan, tears on her cheeks. "Are we free?" Evan smiled gently. "Yes, we're free now." As the shuttle lifted into the sky, leaving the colony far behind, Leary rested her head on Evan's shoulder. For the first time in her life, she felt truly safe. She no longer carried only fear. She carried the memory of one human who chose mercy when the world chose cruelty, and that mercy became her new home.